Hello guys, today I'm gonna be sharing with you a short video about the basic concepts of C++ programming language and the C++ programming structure. Basically what this video will cover is the basics. So we're not gonna be going into the in-depth of giving examples on how things are gonna be applied and what is going to be the result of that application. Basically we are just trying to understand that these are the basic concepts you need to keep in mind while you're designing your C++ program, so that in case you are using certain symbols, or if you're assigning certain variables, or if you're assigning certain data types to those variables, you know you are doing it in the right format to avoid errors and to avoid program failures. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. So basic concepts of C++ and the C++ basic program structure. The first concept we're going to be looking at is the data types and the modifiers used on the data types. So basically you have different data types. Data types is basically you're going to be letting the C++ program or the compiler know that what is going to be the value or what is going to be the characteristics of the variable. So by this time I'm assuming you understand the concept of variables and you understand the concept of data types. Basically, if I can give you a quick example, integer. So basically if you're assigning a variable and the variable has an integer value, so you'll assign it like such in C++ programming language. So what you're going to be telling the compiler is that you're going to be assigning a variable called var, and you're going to be assigning it a value 9, and that is an integer variable. Like I said, we are not going to be covering the examples. I'm just going to be listing out different data types quickly, and then later on we'll be looking at concepts in details. The next data type you have for variables is the character data type. This is used for storing characters. So int is used for storing integer values for variables. Character data type is used for storing characters. Bool data type is a boolean data type used for storing boolean or logical values. So basically ones and zeros. So if you're doing a comparison using boolean operators or logical operators which use boolean basics, true or false values, you have float data type. So basically if you are assigning decimal values to variables, you have double float. So the precision, so basically it's a higher precision than normal float. Void, meaning a variable without a value or just without a value, or a function without any value. This data type doesn't look important right now, however it has many uses within the C++ program when you're designing it. So I just want you to keep in mind about these data types. Just have a quick list, like a cheat sheet. And the next data type you have is the w character underscore t, which is basically a wide character data type, and it's just used to store greater bit value character variables. Okay, these are the basic data types. So basically, once again, if you are assigning a variable in a C++ program, you need to define what sort of variable it is gonna be. So basically, you're gonna be defining the characteristics of the variable, and characteristics of the variable are pretty much known as the data types of the variable, and these are the common data types used in C++. Now, these data types can be modified to work in a certain way, and modifiers have keywords. So basically, you have signed, unsigned, and these both words can be used with a few variable data types above. So basically, you can use sign int, unsigned int, sign char, unsigned character. You can use float, and then you can use double float. Alright, now signed and unsigned is basically if you're going to be assigning a sign to the integer value, and if you're not going to be assigning a unsigned integer value. So basically, if you put a modifier for the data type, it'll use less space or it'll use more space depending on the value of the variable that you're assigning. So it's just a more efficient way of using the data types, so that you can save on memory, you can save on space, and you can efficiently use the hardware. Okay, now going on, in a program you can also assign a constant integer value, integer variable. So basically, the way it's defined is constant int, then you can use the name of variable, and you can assign it a constant value. So basically, this will define a variable, which in our case will be name of variable, the value 10 throughout the program. So it's not gonna change, and this variable called name of variable is an integer with the value 10, and it's never gonna change. So no matter which expressions you're gonna use on this, it's not gonna change the value of the variable name underscore of underscore variable. Now, what do you need to keep in mind when you're defining a variables? When you want to define a variable. So format of a variable, basically it must begin with an alphabet. It can only contain letters, numbers, and underscore. Variables are case sensitive, and that's the reason why they say that the most easiest variable name you use throughout the program is more efficient, rather than using a long variable name or a variable name which has an uppercase, lowercase, so that it's easy to remember while you're designing a program. And the most important thing is there are a few set of words called reserved words, also known as keywords, and you cannot use reserved words or keywords for variables. If you do that, C++ is gonna get confused and it's not gonna do nothing with those variables. No matter what data type you assign or what modifiers you assign to that variable, it's gonna just reject it and you're gonna get an error. Okay, a few keywords. Commonly used keywords, but these keywords are included in the list, but they are not limited. I'm just gonna give a few so that you have an idea about what the keywords are. So, and basically if I show you these are the basic keywords, you won't end up assigning the keywords as variables for your program to end up into an error. So you have auto, break, catch, class, delete, do, for, new, int, long, mutual, public. Okay, protected, return, size off. This is a very handy keyword used in the program. We'll look at it later on in detail about how to use it and what does it actually do. Signed, which is basically one of the modifiers. Void, you can't use that as a name of a variable, and while, you can't use that as a name of a variable. So like I said, I just want you to know that these are the things you need to keep in mind while you're designing your C++ program, that you follow these in order to reduce the amount of work that you do when you're designing the program. Okay, so that being said, operators. So just like we all should already know what's the meaning of the word operators and operands. So operators are basically there are different types of operators, basically different combinations of signs and symbols that you use on operands, basically something that you want to compare or something that you want to evaluate, and depending on the data type, how does those operands apply, and if those operands can be applied on those sort of data types. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if you're defining an integer data type, there is a certain set of operators that you can only use on integers. However, if you're applying a character operand, so if you're defining a variable which has character, which is a character data type, it's not going to be able to use all of the operators of mathematics. It's just going to be able to compare the values using a certain set of operators in a certain combination. So let's look into it before we get confused. So there are basically 5, it might be more, but from what I know is there are 5 types of operator categories. Okay, you have arithmetic operators, then you have relational operators, then you have logical operators, you have bitwise operators, and you have assignment operators. Okay, so each set of operators under each type of operator acts in a certain way. So basically, common arithmetic operators are used for performing common arithmetic operations. So you can use the addition sign, the minus sign, the multiplication sign, the division sign, the modulus sign. You can add a value to the existing integer variable. So basically, if the value of a variable you've assigned is 1, if you do the plus plus variable name, it will assign the value 1 after the end of the program, so the value will change to 2. I'm just giving you a general idea so that you know what it is. So basically, when you're designing a program, make sure you keep in mind the format of signs and symbols. So if you do a minus minus, you should know that okay, that's an arithmetic operator and it'll reduce the value of the variable that you've assigned, the integer variable, so that you don't use the minus minus sign only on a character data type. Basically, it's gonna fail. The minus minus is only gonna work on an integer data type. Okay. Moving forward, relational operators, basically they are used for comparing operands. So if you're using a relation operator on a character data type, it'll compare the bits of the characters. If you're using it on an integer, it'll consider the literal integer value of the data type. We look at this further later on. Let's just know the symbols that are included in the relational. So you have the greater than sign, less than sign, you have the greater than equal to sign, you have the less than equal to sign, you have the equal to sign, and then you have the not equal to sign. So basically, if you look at the equal to sign, so the reason why it's the equal to sign is if you want to say if a is equal to b, that means only proceed further with the function statements if the value of a is equal to b. If you just put one equal to sign, it becomes an assignment for the variable, which we're going to be looking at later on. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to say is if you're comparing two operands and you need to do a conditional check, a relational check to proceed further, basically you want to see that only if the value of operand A and operand B are equal, proceed further. For that, you're going to be using the symbol equal to sign. You cannot use a single equal to sign. Okay, moving forward, logical operators. So basically you have the and or ampersand, however you want to say it, the pipe, or the exclamation mark. So it's going to be evaluating on the basis of true and false values. We look at it later on, but just remember, like these, the combination of ampersand is designated for logical operators. So you know, like okay, if I use and it's going to be a logical operator in C++. Okay, moving forward, bitwise operators. The word describes by itself. The symbols which fall under the bitwise operators are the ampersand sign, the pipe sign, the caret sign, and the tilde sign. Okay, and the assignment operators, like I was mentioning earlier, basically these operators assign a value to a variable or something that you want to assign it to. So basically the equal to sign, the plus equal to sign, the minus equal to sign, the multiplication equal to sign, and the division equal to sign. Okay, so these guys perform a certain function before assigning the value or reassigning the value to the variable. However, the single equal to sign will directly assign a value to a variable. Okay, pretty quick, just moving forward. I don't want to make the video any much longer. The structure of a C++ program. So basically, a good programmer follows a certain structure while he's designing a C++ program. So basically, the program is going to be such that it's going to have a documentation section where the programmer is going to be documenting things about the program, or if he's putting in certain statements that require further explanation to future programmers or future people who are going to be working on the program, he has to follow a certain set of directions in order to apply those instructions or documentation. So basically what I'm trying to say is the division sign is used to define single line comments. So basically what we are doing is we are looking at the structure of the C++ program. So basically you will be first documenting things. Now if you want to be documenting single lines, you can just put the division sign and type in whatever it is. Those are single line comments. Or you can use this structure in the beginning of the line and then maybe put documentation and then end the line in a following way. So basically this format is used when you are documenting multiple lines, right? So quickly going further, once you document lines or instructions or things that you want other people to know, you'll be having the header file section. Basically you're going to be informing C compiler about which input output headers you want it to use and so on and so forth. So basically the include input output stream .h. Then you have other header files. You also have the conio, if I'm not wrong, but anyways, that's one of the example of a header file section. Later you're gonna be having a class declaration or definition section. So basically what you're gonna be doing here is you're gonna be assigning data types and variables and values to those variables. You can either do it before the function or you can do it within the function, however you want to do it. Defining it before the function will make it the same throughout the function within the program. Now if you are assigning a definition within a function, that value of the variable will be applied within the function, and it's not going to be same outside of the function or in another C++ program. It's a bit complicated, but just know that if you're defining a variable or a value to a variable, you can either do it before the function, before the main function, or within the main function, or within the sub functions. And then you have your main function. Okay, so this is the master function of the program, and all statements, basically anything that you define within a program for the program to carry out, all statements which end with the semicolon are written with are written between the curly braces. So basically, if you're designing a C++ program, a good programmer will follow this programming structure for like a standard, so that the programmer himself or herself can easily review the program, and other programmers can also be able to review the program if they have access to the program. Okay, now quickly coming to the end of the video is the types of errors that you might encounter if you don't follow, or if you do a mistake while designing your program. So you might encounter a syntax error, you might encounter a logical error, or you might encounter a link error or a runtime error. So basically the name of the errors do define what they say, but if I can make it any simpler, syntax error is basically something that you haven't used correctly. Logical error is basically if you're trying to use a logical expression or operator, it failed to perform it because the format or the data type of the character used for the logical operation was incorrect. Link error is basically the program was not able to link to the other files, or the program was not able to link to the header file that you asked it to link to, or any other custom header files, or any other variables in any other programs that you have defined within the program. A runtime error is basically failure, as in maybe there are no dependencies for the application to run, or for some reason it just failed. Maybe there is a problem with the software. That's just a quick overview, guys. Nothing much in depth. It's just like I said, if you're designing a C++ program, you need to keep in mind the data types and the data type modifiers when you're defining variables, the modifiers that you can use on those variables, what are constant integer variables, what's the format of a variable. So it has to begin with an alphabet. It can only have letters, numbers, and underscore. Basically you can't use any of these symbols for a variable. Variables are case sensitive, so if you are defining a variable, say var, and you want to define the same variable with the program, but you define it var, it's gonna fail. Okay, and cannot use reserved words or keywords. So these are the reserved words. So basically these words are defined within the C++ program to carry out a certain operation. If you use them for the variable name, you're gonna have a error. Either it's gonna be a runtime error or a syntax error. Now operators, which are used on operands, so these guys are the operands. So basically whatever variable and variable type you define in the program, you can use a certain set of operators. If you're assigning a character operator, and if you're using arithmetic operators, if you're defining character variables which are operands, and if you're using arithmetic operators on those operands, you're gonna have a syntax error. So you have your arithmetic operators, which are basically done on integers or floats. You have relational operators, greater than, less than. If you are comparing character variables, it's going to compare the bits size of it, or if you're comparing integers, it's going to compare the integer value of that integer. Logical operators, bitwise operators, assignment operators. Okay, now a basic C++ program structure is you have the documentation section, and in order for you to provide documentation, you will have to use the division sign or division multiplication and end with a multiplication division sign with your documentation within it if you're doing a multiple line documentation. Then you have your header file, which is basically your include file. Then you have your declarations. The declarations, like I said, can be inside the function or before the function, depending on how you want the declarations to be defined within the program. You have to have a main function. Without a main function, your C program is not going to proceed further, which is the master function. And all statements within the function will end with a semicolon. And the function statements are written between curly braces. And to end this video, a few types of errors that you can keep in mind. You have a syntax error, you have the logical error, you have the link error, and you have the runtime error. Like I said, guys, this is just a basic run through of things that you need to keep in mind when you're designing a C++ program. Nothing in depth or nothing explained in detail. Maybe I'll make a video explaining things in detail, and I would love to do that. So let me know what are your comments, what do you think about this video, and if this video was helpful. Thank you very much to watch my video. Have a good day.